You just heard Enslaved, Death in the Eyes of Dawn from the RIITIIR, is how I'm going to pronounce that album. This is the time of the year when we put our list together of all the best records in heavy metalness. And that's the Requiem Podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jason. And RIITIIR, I think we'll go with that.
I've been listening to a lot of the Dark Throne commentaries, and Fenrir always has his. This is if you want to pronounce, correct Norwegian. It's always has like a rolled R and completely crazy. So I just make it up.
Just make it up. Yeah. So
it's not John Ritter, but
man, this is like our this is our fifth best of. I think we're.
I think so.
That. Yeah. And then I think April will be our 6-year anniversary, maybe.
Yeah, but we've had hiatuses.
Well, I mean, I'm just in terms of like from when we started.
So I'm not even sure what episode we're on right now.
I think we're like approaching 170, somewhere in that realm. I think
160 something.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild.
So. It's been a while since we've done the shows too.
I know.
Consistently. Since,
I know.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, when people hear this, they hopefully have heard the Iron Maiden stuff that we threw down today as well. So, yeah, Enslaved. This was up there for both of us in terms of our year-end stuff. I really liked the last Enslaved quite a bit, more than I did Vertebrae. For some reason, I didn't connect to Vertebrae as much. But I know you had a kind of a criticism of, not a criticism, but you felt maybe there was a little less gruntal vocals on the last record. I remember you saying, whereas like this one,
I mean, this is like a good mix, because I think that's one thing that I don't think, if they lost that, they would really be losing something, because unlike Opeth, they actually... I think their identity, it has to have some of those elements, and otherwise it's not Enslaved.
Well, I was even saying that this is what this record is what I wanted Heritage to be.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, just a nice, healthy balance of like all these elements, but still pushing the envelope forward. Still,
yeah. I mean, 5 records into this lineup that they have. I mean, we were talking about this off mic. Was that some bands like to push the boundaries, and they have vocally, and they have we have a front man that does vocals, so he's just going to do it, and it might be piss poor. But Enslaved, recruited somebody that bringing in somebody on keyboards that can also sing as well. Then you can let Gritla do what he does and scream almost better than anybody I can think of.
Yeah, he's got one of the best, like,
just snarly,
but it works in like a musical way. It rounds out their quality.
Their sound we were watching the Immigrant Song cover that they did on Happy Tom Show Norway. I was just like, it works perfect to have him scream "Hammer of the Gods." Yeah. It's like, okay, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, a classic hard rock song about Viking invasions, and there you go. But yeah, this song that we picked out, "Death in the Eyes of Dawn," I felt like had it just sort of captures a lot of the different elements that you see on the record, the progressive elements, the harsher elements, the super like great soloing, very like Pink, Floydian Dave Gilmour kind of soloing with some prog roots kind of in it. These sort of like great vocal hooks from
Hairbrand.
Hairbrand. And I can never remember his name whenever I'm talking. I always think of Icedale,
Well, he's
who we were commenting is always shirtless whenever he's playing.
That's why when I did the Decibel illustration for him, he is shirtless.
Shirtless, gotta be.
Has to be.
It's gotta be. But again, not even a triumphant return, because I think Enslaved now has proven in the last decade for sure, really the last 12 years, going back to they are just consistent. They're constantly evolving. They're sort of they really locked into a well balanced sound, I think now.
They had the weird the Elds and Bloodheim and like stuff where they're just kind of like, it seems like they're kind of like stretching out in different directions to figure out, okay, we're gonna go real weird and proggy.
Kind of growing pains years.
But they were never
really cool ideas came.
But you never look back and like, oh man, they were really ugly 12-year-old kids. No, they were just slightly awkward, but they all those pieces like kind of like if those didn't exist, then we wouldn't have Enslaved that we have now.
Yeah, and so definitely one of the higher up records for me this year is definitely the Enslaved.
And actually, the Cyan EP that you can get for free if you're on the Cyan AV site is some fucking great stuff on it as well. Like,
was that this
EP.
year?
Yeah.
Okay. That was like the beginning of the year, wasn't it, when that came out?
I think so.
Yeah. It was right at the beginning. So.
Well, it came out right before the record did. Right before promos for the record started coming.
Oh, okay. So it was probably like late spring then?
I think so.
Okay.
I've got it in the rack.
Yeah, I've got a copy of it as well. Well, Before, in tradition, we always sort of like to mention some of the other records that kind of came out that might not have made our list, but that doesn't mean that they're bad records. We were talking about the Knockmistium Silence and Machine record that came out, and I, for one, thought that this was more of a return to form for them compared to their last record. I wasn't like a big fan of the was it Addicts? Was that the last record? Assassins was the record I liked a lot, and then Addicts was the one that came after it. I just didn't connect personally to Addicts that much. It was a little too psychedelic and Pink Floydian for me.
Well, it was really new wavy too.
Yeah, and
it was kind of weird.
And this one I thought was cool is they brought back a lot of the Instinct Decay sort of elements and merged it with some of the working psychedelic elements of like Assassins. But
yeah, they actually on YouTube, since I don't have real television, I watch a lot of YouTube crap, but they have like a really good 5-part thing of them in the studio all talking about this record.
Doing the record? Yeah. So I thought that was a pretty fantastic thing. We both were talking about Cannibal Corpse Torture.
Yeah, which is, solidly, Eric Rutan produced record, but I mean, out of last, like Kill was good.
Kill was my last favorite of theirs. That was, but like
this one was actually, I don't know. It just seemed like the songwriting was more concise.
Yeah. I like this one better than Evisceration Plague. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Scourge of Iron and Encased in Concrete, I thought were great song. I mean, they're catchy. They're to the point. They're not. I mean, you get what you expect with Cannibal Corpse, but it's
meat and potatoes in a sense,
But they've refined it, unbelievably. Like, I think it's a great record.
I haven't heard that new Incantation record, but that was getting a lot of
I haven't heard an Incantation record since Onward to Golgotha.
Yeah, well, most people would say you don't really need to hear too many since then, but this is supposed to be kind of a return to form. In a sense to that, so
just that whole Suffocation. Well, I wouldn't throw Suffocation there. But Immolation and Incantation are always those kind of bands. I'm like, I know they're important, but they don't click with me that deeply.
Yep, I'm with you. I like those first records of theirs, and then I kind of drift away from those bands usually. So those are a couple that kind of pop out to me real quick. Anything pop out to you?
I mean, that Mutilation Rites that I think that came out on Prosthetic.
Yeah, that's got a nice sound.
It's Empyrean.
Aren't they Brooklyn? Brooklyn based or New Jersey based? I know they're American.
I think they're Ohio.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so, because they were gonna open up. Well, they did open up for. There's the show like Red Fang, Black Tusk.
Oh.
COC, and
they were gonna be on that bill. That's weird.
Yeah, because those two tours merged together because they lost the venue or whatever, and we missed them. But I would like to see them play for sure.
Yeah, that was a cool record.
Then the Pallbearer, I've just got a chance to kind of digest that a little bit recently.
Yeah,
I just found a promo of it over at Abuse
kind
Record
of stoner doom kind of stuff.
I mean, it's bleak, but it's also kind of. It's like if Paradise Lost would have started out as being a bleak doom band and not a death metal band. It's kind of how it. But it's like this time of year is not necessarily when I want to hear like really bleak stuff.
Yeah.
Unless it's like I don't know, like I could listen to like Jeff Buckley or Nick Drake or something. But when it's just miserable and not like funeral doom, but just like where I don't know, you like just the hairs on your neck stand up and you just feel like you want to like go hide under a blanket.
Yeah.
Because at this time we're recording, it gets dark at like 4:30 or something. So.
I did like that. I haven't gotten into that Pallbearer as much, but I've started, it showed up pretty high, I think number 5 on Decibel's list, which kind of piqued my interest. And I know it's a debut on Profound Lore. It's their first one that they put out. So it's
I think they put out they might have had I don't even think they had an EP before. They had a couple demos, I think.
Something like that, yeah. So I definitely need to invest in it more because a lot, Profound Lore has been a pretty consistent label the last few years.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of bad stuff that sort of comes out there. Speaking of Profound Lore, a record that just sort of missed making the cut on our list is that new Dawnbringer, Into the Lair of the Sun God. It's a weird record. If you really dug Nucleus, it's good. It's just slight. It's very like it doesn't hit you with a punch the same way that like Nucleus sort of rolled over you with certain songs.
Sure. Like Old Wizard or. Oh God, what was the other one?
The opening
Earthquake is a fantastic
like an Earthquake,
song.
yeah, is great, and the opening cut of Nucleus just is like incredible.
I forget what the name of it is,
but this one the vocals are a little less harsh, a little less Lemmy-ish to them, and they're They're more.
They're kind of low in the mix too.
Thing. Yeah, it's
where they're almost like it's like an accompanying thing and not like up front at all. But
a lot of 80s flair to the guitar, really clean stuff going on. Liken it to like a Manila Road or like Cirrus on Goal or just like where it's just like a metal record. It's like metal in every sense.
And there's no word. There's no pretension to it at all.
Yeah, a record that we like normally we would put on. Because I think they rank high for both of us as Catatonia. And I didn't even write down, I forgot what the name of the new record is offhand. It doesn't even, it's how unmemorable it sort of was in a weird way.
Oh, Dead End Kings.
Dead End Kings, yeah.
Which is kind of a,
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'll never hate Catatonia. It just didn't advance them really forward in a way where I wanted them to go.
No, it's the same thing as the last record, what was the last one?
Oh.
The last really good one.
Oh my gosh. I can picture it. I can picture it.
It's just black on black, so I can't see.
Yeah.
Night is the New Day.
Yep, Night is
the New Day was perfect. Well, like that's exactly what they need to do: pushing their sound, keeping what they had, but refining a little bit.
Even having that kind of guest vocalists come in to kind of change the dynamics.
Kristen Linder or whatever.
Yep.
That's a great song, and it had like some more like modern Deftone vibes to it. And the new one was just too
samey or
too samey, just like the angular riffs. Like enough already. Let's go back to doing some of the more like melancholic.
Yeah.
Stuff like you can totally fit that in along with like some more modern sounding stuff, but it was just I don't hate it, but
no,
it's not. It doesn't make it wouldn't make my top 40 list.
Sure. A record that I've recently gotten into, and I think given like a few more weeks, it may have crept into my top 10 potentially, is that new Torch Harmonicraft. I didn't really get into like the Torch EPs that came after Meanderthal, and so I kind of like looked past this, and then I saw it got in the top 40 in Decibel, so I was like, I never really got around to listen to that Torch, and start poking around the last few days, and actually found that I enjoyed it a lot, but I still haven't picked it up myself. So who knows, if you were to survey me a month from now, just like that Paul Bear, maybe that would show up.
Yeah.
The R Noir, Out to Die, good record. We featured it on our R Noir show earlier in the year, but not as good as the one previous, which was such a fantastic record. The black cover with the red emblem pentagram thing on it, it doesn't.
All I'm thinking of is Craft Fuck the Universe.
Yeah, exactly. We did the Craft show around the same time as the R Noir show. I feel like. So, but yeah, it's Out to Die. Good, but nothing mind blowing.
Production was kind of wonky on it too. Yeah. I thought.
Any non-metal records that you had? I had. There's a cool indie band called Grizzly Bear with a album called Shields. It's kind of like. It's got some Radiohead vibe to it and some other kind of cool things happening. And then the new Soundgarden, not great, but I'm glad to have them back in the same way that I'm glad like Alice in Chains is still putting out.
I want Kim Thill to take off the knit hat, and I want to see if he's bald or not.
Yeah, he might be. So
I saw him on some like Letterman or something, and it's okay.
It sort of picks up. I really like the upside. Sort of picks up, which is experimental rock. I like hearing
Chris Cornell scream, and he has hair again, so it takes me back to the '90s a little bit.
But I don't think they're ever going to put out like sludge rock records again.
I don't want to do. I just want him to like wail a little bit. Yeah, because I think that's where he shines. Especially like even on his first solo record, there's some really good stuff on that.
Yeah.
Or the Bond song that he did. That's fucking great
for sure. So.
The Hooded Menace too. That was one that came out. I don't remember when that came out. Early summer, maybe.
It was one I overlooked.
Yeah,
because I didn't really get into the last one that much, so I kind of.
This one's kind of takes it back to like Fulfill the Curse, where it's kind of way back to where I think where they kind of shine. It's back to the 2-piece and not the extra vocalist, like recording on. I don't even remember what the other one was now.
I can't.
So many names of albums like thrown around now. But that was one when I initially heard it. I was like, it's okay, and then I've been listening to it quite a bit lately. Just
and what you played for me today, I dug it right away.
There's like
way more
sweet like Vincent Price thing into it, like just some weird riffing, like really melancholic, and like that's kind of what I want of them with just guttural ass vocals.
And then that High and Fire, I think that was high up for both of us. We featured it when we did our High and Fire show earlier in the year. I just unfortunately put it away. I haven't pulled it out really in the last few months too much.
I just blasted it when I was in the shower.
Yeah,
it's not too long, like a couple days ago.
Yeah, and it's good.
It's a really good record. I just wanted to highlight other things.
Sure,
I think.
Sure. And speaking of other things, let's dive in to our next set of music. We've got kind of old standard, but this is a band that I think, based on the last few records that they've put out, actually, I mean, really their last 3 records, even though there's a 8-year gap in between the first and the third, because the Gathering came out in 99, and
then Formation
was like 2007 or something like that, or 2008.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, it was. Seems like a while back.
Jesus Christ, man!
I know, it's crazy. Maybe it was 2009, but anyways, there was a huge gap between the Gathering and this, and Dark Roots of the Earth, musically, I think is just firing on all cylinders. I mean, I don't think
Gene Hoglan on drums is
he's doing
fantastic.
some freaking blast beats.
Yeah.
In a thrash metal record.
Yeah, and it works.
And the song you're going to hear, True American Hate, has it. I don't think Skolnick's been this good and this focused since the 80s, if ever, really. I mean, he's older and
Greg
wiser.
Christensen, come on, he's back too.
Yeah, it's good. They got 4/5. No Louis Clemente, but...
Well, I think that's for the better, because he was always the weak link.
He was the weak link. Yeah, Hoglan's definitely a step up.
Yeah.
And
I think he's a better fit for the band than Bostaph was.
Yeah.
Really. Because I think Bostaph played on Formation, didn't he?
I think he did.
Hoglan has mumuch more immediacy, and just like his choices are better. I think a lot of the time he's just unconventional stuff.
Yeah, and I think the only downside, and I agreed with you when you brought this up, is there's a couple of the songs lyrically are a little weak, but then they make up for it with a few songs like Cold Embrace. I think is pretty fantastic. It sort of reminds me of some of the shaky lyrics that Slayer had, like on certain records, like Christ Illusion, where like there's some songs that like the songs are cool, but like I just maybe they blew their proverbial wad with the music, and then the lyrics kind of were.
I mean, if they're like a band like
you got Native Blood, which is another cool Native American song, going back to.
But I think because Testament in general have more of a. I mean, they're not like overly serious guys, but they have serious tones to all their records. It's not like a Toxic Holocaust or Municipal Waste, where there's like kind of like a fun aspect to it. And I think if they had
party thrash,
I think if they had a bit of that going on, like with their sensibility in general, I wouldn't have had a problem with the lyrics. But they seem like something I would have wrote in high school and thought they were kind of deep.
Yeah,
and like repeating phrases too much and things like that. But I mean, overall, I think it's a great record.
Yep. And that's where we're going to go. And so Testament's going to sort of give way to a totally different sort of trio of bands. And we'll talk more about those bands when we come back, but I guess it mellows things out a little bit and shows you some of our, I don't want to say our sensitive side, but like I guess our more rock and roll inspired kind of
because as long as this extreme metal thing goes on, it's not going to just, I don't know, I get bored listening to just one kind of thing. And without like Nuclear Blast and Central Media both have pretty wide breadths of what they sign to their labels. Sure. So really, I mean, if it's on those labels, it kind of makes it into the trades and it makes it into our hands. So that's if they put out something that's not like paint ripping metal, that's fine.
And we've never been afraid to throw things on that are quote unquote mainstream.
We're music fans, and first and foremost, and metal just happens to be the thing that I think we identify with a lot, but we love other things as well.
Sure. And so so we're gonna go into Testament with True American Hate from Dark Roots of the Earth. Then we got Witchcraft, White Light Suicide from the Legend record, Graveyard's Slow Motion Countdown from Lights Out, and then we're gonna close things down with Anathema, The Beginning and the End from Weather Systems.
Cast your stone into the water now and watch them ripples spread like poison. Under the gun, under me, you'll feel slaughtered and betrayed. I know you put your trust in heaven's arms. Happiness eludes your being. It said that purple would open up your mind. How come all I see is black and white? Anything that's made with heart and soul comes with a price not worth to pay. All those years and years I struggled to be your hero and saint. It said that purple would open up your mind. How come all I see is black and white? It gets us down. you even try to reach? And don't you even try to let it go? While everything around me is breaking down so slow, where will you go when we all fade away? Where is your silver touch above the sun next to us? So when you walk outside to see the reasons fall, do not forget the light that doesn't make you grow. Why just stay at home or just the saddest news? There is no side to choose, and the numbers scroll and push you down so low. Don't ever let it lose. Don't ever let it lose. Oh, wasn't it a long way down? They leave us behind. So stay where you are and come around no more. But it has got too far. I'll be asking for you. No, I won't see your call the way the others do. If these are your prayers, I won't follow you. this cold heart is a dream that's locked in a box that I keep, buried 100 miles deep. In my soul, in a place that's surrounded by aeons of silence. And somewhere inside is the everything I want to feel, but the dark summer dawns of my memory are lost in a place that can never be. Can someone please show me the Can someone please help me? 'Cause I cannot see and the silence is raging. Silence is raging. Silence, silence, fade into silence. Silence, silence, fade into silence. Memory, memory, silence the key to memory. Memory, silence the key to
That was Anathema with The Beginning and the End from Weather Systems, Graveyard's Slow Motion Countdown from Lights Out, and Witchcraft's White Light Suicide from Legend. And then we started things off, of course, with Testament and True American Hate from from Dark Roots of the Earth. Let's, I guess, we'll sort of take these in order. We'll go all the way back to Witchcraft a bit. Legend, I think, was a record that it caught me off guard. I think it caught a lot of people off guard.
I got the promo fairly early on because I did an illustration for it, and when did Alchemist come out? I mean, it was
5 years ago, 2007. Yeah,
and I remember liking that record a lot, but it was I liked
it, but it was still like I I was distant from it, like in the way where like when I heard Ghost, I was like close to it all of a sudden. I always felt like I don't say it was novelty, but
I really liked Firewood. I think it's the second record.
It's first or second. I can't remember. Yeah,
that one because it was very on the coattails of like Electric Wizard, Cathedral-ish, kind of like 70s retro stuff. And then Alchemist came out. It was a little more complicated and thematic. And this came out. It's just like somehow taking that 70s aesthetic, mixing it with a modern
aesthetic, you got like Perfect Circle, Tool, Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Like harmonies and great epic like solos, kind of like, which they had never really been known for doing those sort of straightforward solos. Sing-along choruses that like get kind of stuck in your head like all day. I mean, this Witchcraft record, I remember like talking to Wagner about it, Jeff Wagner, who's been on the show a couple times doing stuff with us, and he said between this and like the Deftones record, like in the last like 4 months, those has been like dominated, and Enslaved, I think.
Until the new Voivod record comes out.
Yeah, and then
if you've heard any of that, it sounds fantastic.
Is it pretty sweet? Yeah. I think he's probably. I think he's start talking a little bit about it.
Oh, I'm sure he has it.
But yeah, the Legend has to be one of the records I think I listened to the most in the last 4 or 5 months, hands down. And I know a lot of people that feel that way. It made the top. I think it was number 4 or number 3 on Decibel's top 40, which speaks pretty loudly to it.
Yeah, it was right up there.
And I think again, it was just he upped his game vocally. He goes into like some Maynard kind of moments like Tool, Perfect Circle, but then like he
his
also
phrasings and stuff too.
He hits some really like sort of high passages that like are completely memorable and like hook you in. Like,
and Alchemist. I mean, he's always had Magnus as the vocalist. Yeah, has always had a kind of weird. He doesn't have a huge range, but he kind of works within those limitations. But this, he's almost like upped his like the vocal range a little bit, staying within, not like pushing it too far. I
would compare this to like it's like Jonas from going from Tonight's Decision to Last Fair Deal Gone Down. Yeah, like it's just he's putting himself out there, but it's within his limits. Yeah, but there's like more emotional punch behind all the songs. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say this in a critical way, but whenever I always listen to some of those older Witchcrafts, I felt like there was a novelty element to it, and that's probably like the wrong way of putting it, but it's like, I was like, when I put it on, I was like, oh, this is a 70s retro record, cool, and I liked it, but again,
Firebird or something.
But it was like, it was like, okay, I get what this is, but when I heard this, I felt like this is a band that's thinking about like, they're not just worshiping Pentagram and some of that old stuff, but they're conceiving of like a future for this sound.
Well, I think that's what what Electric Wizard did last year too. Is people were pissed that what is this like? They're like that last Electric Wizard, Black Masses, I think was like a 60s Motown record done like infused with metal. Yeah, just like really like awesome sing along chorus, like memorable vocal lines, which you don't normally. Sure. Here, like the last couple, there was just like, high gain screams and there's nothing really, is all about the music. And I think all this stuff, for some reason, that's the genre right now that seems to be like making sense and kind of like being relevant, even though it's like based on, 40-year-old music. Yeah,
it is weird. And then kind of along those same lines, I guess, is that Graveyard record. And we were really big on the last Graveyard record, Hinsingen Blues, which came out last year, I do believe. I think it's only 2011. Yeah. And I mean, that was one of my top records of last year. And this new Graveyard, it doesn't hit you in the same sort of way. Like the opening cut really is catchy. I remember like right away. It
seems like like something that they kind of wrote. It's like a leftover or something that's a bridge. Yeah.
And then there's like saxophones. There's some like different kind of things kind of happening on it. I've really started to get into it more lately, but it's more subtle.
It's very subtle. I mean, it's more of a showcase for vocals. Yeah. And songwriting instead of just kind of like raging guitar.
Exactly. Stuff, like just catchy like rock tunes that you can like play for people. And I mean, I think they won a Grammy for Hinsingen Blues in Sweden, and so that kind of I think brought a little bit more pressure and spotlight to them, and maybe this is sort of their attempt at kind of doing something a little bit more mature that's going to get them more critical acclaim from a songwriting standpoint, perhaps.
Well, I think they could get on more of the hipster indie mojo vibe. Crowd kind of thing with this
potentially,
really, because it's produced really, really well. Yeah. And then just like the vocal performance, which I don't know any of the guys' names in the band.
No, me neither.
But the song that we played, the
Slow Motion Countdown.
I mean, it sounds like it could be like a B-side off a Buckley album.
And you and I both picked up on like Lilac Wine as kind of this like, melody and stuff like that. You know,
it's not he's pushing, because I really like how he's got kind of like he's got a dirty, he can scream like an old blues man voice as well. But then it sounds like, oh, I quit smoking and I tried to sing pretty, and look what I can do.
Well, in the same way,
in a good way.
You know, Jeff Buckley was always kind of merging his father's sort of pretty folk melodies with like Robert Plant's like power, you know, and he was like a perfect mixture of all those elements. I feel like he's got that too, where when you need to do like kind of a Led Zeppelin Cream, like,
rock out with your cock
really
out
just
kind of
go
thing.
for it.
Yeah.
He can do it. You know, Paul Rogers from Free and some of that stuff. But he there's a sweetness in that I just didn't detect on the last record.
It's like a vulnerability.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I did hear it was in the second to last cut on Hinsing and Blues, and it's the one that talks about being on the slave ship at the beginning.
Yeah, but that's almost more of just like it's like a blues ballad.
Yeah,
really.
where he's like, I was captive on a slave ship. Kind of like, it's definitely bluesy, but like there was vulnerability in that song, I guess, that hinted towards what he was going to do on this record, which I think is cool. So for sure, if you want two like great rock records, just like that you can listen to over and over again, that Graveyard and that Witchcraft are like, just you can't really do better.
Make a perfect Christmas gift.
And they're both Swedish too.
Yeah, I mean, somebody that if somebody just like really likes rock music, you get on those.
Get it for like your dad.
How could you not like those records?
Exactly. I've played it for a lot of non-metal people who have really kind of dug.
Well, the last I was down in Lexington. That's where I picked up the last one on record. And I was playing it for everybody down there, like, because between that and The Ghost, and everybody loved it, no matter what their, music proclivities were, they loved it.
It breaks down barriers, and it's not overtly satanic like The Ghost. You can, like, not, you won't scare too many people away with that one. And then we brought back, a band that very well could have fallen in the same category as, like, Catatonia did, but luckily... they and another of the so-called Peaceful Three had a pretty good year. These guys had more of a quiet year in terms of like the metal spectrum, because I think at this point Anathema has walked away from the metal genre. Essentially, I mean, they're heavy in the sense of like the word heavy, in the same way that like Witchcraft is heavy emotionally, or
and they're still associated with, which I think it's stupid for them to try to disassociate with, the avenues that are gonna get them like their past fans.
Yeah.
Still keep that out there, because they're still covered in metal magazines all the time.
Sure. And they've started to get more coverage, I think, in the progressive scene a little bit. Steve Wilson produced their last record, which is always kind of a big deal with prog fans and stuff, because Porcupine Tree's place is pretty high. But I think the last record, we're here because of you, or
we're here because we're here.
We're here, yeah. I should know I'm a huge Anathema fan, but that record didn't. It seemed kind of uneven, and it had some really good moments and some moments where I was like, bleh, big deal.
Yeah, like a lot of sparseness and I don't know. You have to have, even if you're writing really like, I think sparse or like layered or just kind of like. Just the records that aren't really like super immediate, you still have to have something in them that you can something to hook onto, some kind of like vocal hook or something where it's not just this like it's a labor to listen to.
And I think the last record that had that was Natural Disaster back in 2002, and that record was great, and it had some fierce moments like that Violent song, which had like almost enslaved drumming at the end.
Well, like 10,000 League pulled down 10,000 miles per whatever it was or something. Yeah.
Just so it had some of that kind of stuff to it. This record, the song we played, the beginning and the end, I like this because this fits more into the sort of alternative for Judgment kind of feel to it, where it's like it's not as intense musically, but like emotionally and vocally it's there, and there's some really like nice, really classy guitar playing near the end that reminds me, I think, of Judgment the most. I mean, this song kind of fits in that.
What to put over the top is if Kavanaugh did a little feedback again. Would it kill him to do feedback? Come on.
They do it on this record a little bit. Okay. It's not,
because he did it so well. I mean, he's the king of feedback. Totally,
he's the king of it. He's great at doing it. So
like using it almost as riffs.
especially on Judgment. That was kind of like his peak of doing that. But yeah, pick it up. Weather System. It's very consistent. I think it's the best thing they've put out in probably 10 years. So, can't go wrong. Now we're going into a completely different direction. We go from our sensitive exploration of feelings and emotions and vocal hooks
to death the brutal way.
Just bludgeoning the mind a little bit, but in a cool way. And 3 bands from the old school days that had a good year. Indeed. Yeah, I mean, it's not off. Well, it seems to be more and more, commonplace actually, which is weird. But usually, like when bands would go away for a while, or when they come back, they have like one good record, and then they would kind of start waning again. Yeah. But with Grave, I mean, they after Jorgen Sandstrom left the band and was in Entombed and Project Hate and all other stuff, and oh Jesus, I'm forgetting his name. Ola Lindgren. Ola Lindgren. Filled in or stepped up to do vocals. So it was basically like almost a got a 3-piece, right, or 2-piece.
It was a 3-piece for a while. Now they got another guitar player. But at first I was just like, well, I really like Jorgen's voice. Yeah, that kind of associated like more guttural thing with Grave. But for the last like 10 years, he's been almost the sole songwriter and frontman of the band. It's been actually put out some pretty solid records. That Back from the Grave was decent, and there's a couple other that I can't think of. They've all have very similar covers and stuff, but Endless Procession of Souls sound, I mean, it has for being around for 20 some years, it has just as much like enthusiasm as like Into the Grave or You'll Never See.
I was gonna say it harkens back to like those first couple records. I feel like and it taps right into that like just that sludgy, thick, like what I envision Grave's sound to be.
Well, and it's something that I don't like. There's something to be said for being simple, and simple doesn't mean that it's simplistic, but the whole reason Celtic Frost works is because the riffs are like it's like instinct. Like you think you could have wrote those riffs. Like, why have not heard that riff before? Yep. They're simple, but yet instantly they get memorable. Yeah, and I think a lot of like death metal is overly technical nowadays. Not so much like the Enslaved stuff. There's like real songwriting going on there, but the overly techie stuff that has there's nothing for me to grab onto. Really.
Yeah, it's like lacks a soul almost.
Yeah, and this stuff, I don't know. I think there's a certain purity of old death metal that guys like Martin Van Drunen and Ola Lindgren and Johnny Hedlund from Unleashed still kind of grab onto, and they've 20 years on the road, they're still doing great records.
I think about that great quote and how much I understood where he's coming from, but I actually like kind of disagree with him so much in Metal Evolution when Yngwie Malmsteen talking about like people who say less is more. No, more is more. Less is not more. Well,
Yngwie, it depends on what hands are playing the guitar.
It just depends. I mean, when like Chuck Schuldiner is doing some intricate solos and things like that, like I'm cool with that. But works
when Chuck was doing solos, there's feeling there.
Exactly.
It wasn't just guitar masturbation.
Exactly. And Yngwie will never. That's why we'll never do an Yngwie Malmsteen show,
And even like Necrophagus or something, like there's some songs where you can start to get a little bit of a groove to it or something, but if it's just techie for the sake of being techie,
some bands know how to do it right. Like Obscura has really found a really good balance of like throwing feeling and emotion, but
even like Voivod. They're people think they're like a technical band, but they play weird riffs, but it's fairly like straightforward, simplified stuff. But it's just weird
left of center way of approaching. It's almost like how Faith No More approached like alternative metal or something. Like it just wasn't quite right all the time, and that's why it worked.
But it's not overly like we're playing 15,000 different notes. Piggy was a pretty straightforward guitar player, really. I think.
I mean, look at where their roots. They were kind of like coming out of Venom, Celtic Frost kind of roots, totally. And stuff. So, but so Grave and Asphyx, these are sort of like two, and Unleashed to boot. I mean, like you said, these are 3 bands that clearly have a much more straightforward kind of sound to them.
Well, and Unleashed never went away, but people have forgot about them year after year after year, and they've been I think their last 5 records have been fantastic, better than their old shit, really. Yeah, I mean, and they haven't deviated from the kind of because they're another band that they're really straightforward, simple. Sure, but they pull in a new lead guitar player. I think he's a new lead guitar player. Yeah, I think so, because the other guy was too lazy and didn't want to play any leads, but. Like there's actually like some really good lead playing going on, great drumming, and it's just I don't know. I never get sick of these guys, but they tend to be forgotten because they're oh, they're just the old workhorses out there still doing their thing. But Asphyx, after they came out with, Death the Brutal Way, the kind of their comeback.
Sure.
And now this one with the title track Deathhammer, where it's this is true death metal, you bastards.
Yeah, it's a great little things going on in this song.
Yeah, I mean, the whole song is just about how they're not like some of probably the younger bands that are overly, I don't know.
Let's try and teach these young lads a lesson.
Like this is what death metal is. And you might play metal, but this is what death metal is
yes.
This is Asphyx. It's simple, it's dirty, it's aggressive, it's talking about people suck.
Yep, I like it. So, and then Odalheim is the name of the newest Unleashed record. Mm-hmm. So we got Vinland coming up too. So we got Perimortem from Endless Procession of Soul's Grave, Asphyx is Deathhammer from Deathhammer, and then Unleashed Odalheim with a song called Vinland. And one thing about this Perimortem song that we're going to start things off with Grave, it's one of the faster Grave songs we've ever heard. It's very thrashy.
Really thrashy. And when I first heard
Sodom.
it, I thought it was a cover of like a Sodom or a Destruction song or an old Creator song or something, but it's fucking fantastic. So like the first little bit has this total Teutonic vibe, and then it goes right into like Grave that we kind of know and love.
Yep. So stay tuned for this trio of tunes, and then we're gonna kind of go out after Unleashed with something from the new Goatwhore and something from the new Pig Destroyer, and we'll talk about those when we come back.
It's through 10 million bastards. Decades ago, the time out of God, Deathhammer and its new form. So easy then, the most global threats, the most never turns the form. Change is ended, pollution begins, the speaker of the development. The changes to return, make us wait as man, look through your knees and repent. For the Deathhammer, 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 Deathhammer. Vocals of war, the frogs in the war, guitars and guns of the fires. Words open song, drums and the mouth, heal our irony stars. They don't give a fuck, these collecting bucks, acting like statues on stage. Our final call to all those falls, we summon the bastards to rage. Deathhammer, Deathhammer, this is the Deathhammer, Deathhammer. Riding in the faces, lost in for ages, this not purity that once was. Deathhammer bloodstained, death will die again, this is a doctrine and cause. Chapters divided, episodes ending, delivering this death metal bill. The years of the age, feelings as we preach, if you will face that we will. Deathhammer, Deathhammer, bow down to the Deathhammer. Deathhammer, for your knees. Kneel, you dogs. on across the lands. Procession by virtue of war, bloodstained hands, this mold of creation. So there's a requiem as we ascend, unholy battle till the end. But the hatred for the end of gods, crawling race has come to the end of times. Crushed up by a cyclone of the news into silence the followers of light. A war machine of the stabbed gods, see no prisoners without a fight. Forever ends on this we shall dwell, no forgiveness for all that is died. Rain of inversion upon the skies, freezing your blood from the divine. Smash skulls lie beneath our feet, with stealing bone rage. This war on God has just begun, conquest of freedom will be won. Never turn our backs in retreat, with stealing bone rage. King of the holy, the time has come, this war will be won, and this death shall be the domain for the followers of the crucified one. It's death of victory in the hearts, with dead bodies at our feet. Superior forms of bloodshed lead the way for this deceit. The final breath of defiance, a battle to the death, raise the flag of the tower. Rain of inversion upon the skies, feasting on blood from the divine. Tearing flesh with razor teeth, with stealing bone rage. This war on God is just begun, conquest of freedom will be won. Never power ends in defeat, with stealing bone rage.
This then, this is libel, slander, defamation of character. This is a prolonged insult, a gob of spit in the face of art, a kick in the pants to God, man, destiny, time, love, beauty, what you will. I'm gonna sing for you. A little off-key perhaps, but I will sing. I will sing while you croak. I will dance over your dirty corpse. The book of to escape. They only makes me wanna cross it on. All of the reform from Requiem.
That was The Bug from Pig Destroyer's Book Burner. We had When Steel and Bone Meet from Goatwhore's Blood for the Master. And then we heard Unleashed, Asphyx, and we started off with Grave there. So you were mentioning the Goatwhore, which, we just kind of listened to. Another American, I guess, Black Death, thrashy, kind of sort of mishmash genre of stuff. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't care for their earlier stuff.
But the last,
I can't really remember. The last 3 or 4 records
were great.
have been really good.
Yeah.
I mean, they've definitely kind of dipped into that Celtic Frost pool a little bit. But they're just simple... simple is better, I think. Like, if you can write... With how many metal records have been out there, if you can write good, simple stuff, that's way harder than doing a really complicated, techie.
And what I like about this record and this song in particular, why I pulled it out, is because what makes them unique is their roots in New Orleans and kind of coming out of the sludge stuff with Ben Fauga sang for Soylent Green. And you can hear a little bit of the southern sludge in this particular tune, which has a black metal, black thrash kind of vibe to it, but it's got just a little bit of southern friedness to it, which is cool. And then Book Burner from Pig Destroyer, which, a record that, it took me a while to sort of get into. I like it. I appreciate it. It to me, it's not as memorable maybe as some of, the other Pig Destroyers, but whereas those, songs stood out, which is
Phantom
cool.
Limb was kind of their... I don't know, the kind of peak to where they could go with.
Yeah.
With that formula. And this, I think they're trying to go back to more of the grind.
Which is
aspect,
cool.
of more unlistenable-ish things. And
more where you listen to it
riff.
as one continuous piece. And so it nothing stands out as much. You just sort of appreciate the
experience.
I guess, the full piece, if you will.
Oh, the only thing that, the new drummer, I think is... he's solid, but he's almost too good. The other guy was
a little sloppy,
a little failed, and I think I get more out of that, really. Somebody that, if you hear that they're struggling, I don't know, I find that more endearing.
Like a Ken Owen kind of thing? Almost,
where you're slightly off. It's, I don't know, I appreciate that more. I don't like perfection. I think it's boring.
Sure. Well, Vector from Creator was always a little bit off time.
Oh, Ventor,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of those guys are, I don't know, that gives it some charm. Look at any Celtic Frost drummer, really.
Sure, yeah. But
Priestley, or
So those were good. Those were good records for sure. And we're gonna close part 1 of our best of 2012 with a record that's come out recently in the last couple months. And it took me a while to get into this because I think you have to be in the right frame of mind. I think Mark, you talked about kind of the weather and how dark it gets, and with
it's more of an autumnal record, but I didn't hear it in the autumn.
Yeah, and my schedule doesn't fit to really digesting Neurosis very well because I'm listening to songs in little 15-minute spurts where I'm driving back and forth to work, and I don't really get a chance to put Neurosis on in the classroom when I'm when students are doing group work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like Neurosis, I owe it to them to sit down and listen to on headphones and really start to get into it. And so it's only in the last few weeks that I've started to really digest Honor Found in Decay, but I can say that it's the best thing they've done since 2004, since I Have Every Storm, for sure, and probably even going back even before that to Times of Grace and Sun That Never Sets and stuff like that. I didn't get into Given to the Rising that much.
I didn't really
It was
either.
a dense record. It was hard to penetrate in a lot of ways. I don't think it's a bad record. I don't think Neurosis has ever put out anything that's bad. It's just not one that I'm going to pull out as much as maybe some of their other stuff where I can kind of emotionally connect to it.
Yeah.
And I think a song like Bleeding the Pigs has this really cool meditative stuff going on that harkens back to Sun That Never Sets and songs like that. And I was pointing out to you that it has a vibe that reminds me of, speaking of Soundgarden that we talked about earlier, a song from Ultra Mega OK called Behind the Wheel, which is really sludgy, heavy, and epic, and probably features maybe the quintessential Chris Cornell performance where he's just belts it, goes for broke kind of belting it. And some of the things that they do on Bleeding the Pigs has this meditative drumming thing, and then there's that money shot moment at 5:30 where you're just
where Scott Kelly screams
just
and shit
fucking
too.
Boom,
I want more Scott Kelly screaming because all of his cameos that he does on Mastodon or whatever are my favorite parts of those songs.
He screams on this record when you listen to it. Trust me. The song, this is mainly a Steve Von Till song vocally, but on some of the other stuff, he's there. So I think this is a record that again, it's that the Torch record. If you were to ask me a month and a half from now, I think it will have moved up the ranks because I'll I think over Christmas break I'll have some time.
It hasn't come out on record yet,
digest
so I haven't bought it.
So, well, now you have a copy of it because I gave you one here. So, but let us know what you thought. RequiemPodcast@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Check us out on Mark and Jason on Facebook or RequiemPodcast.com, where you can leave comments and check out some merch and different things like that.
Yeah, give us a iTunes review too. That's always nice.
Yeah, I always forgot about those. I haven't checked recently to see if we've gotten any new ones. So I probably should do that. Probably people like, where the hell you been? What the hell's going on? So, but this is part 1. Stick around for part 2. We'll be back soon. I have a feeling. This is Neurosis, Honor Found in Decay, and Bleeding the Pigs. And I'm Jason.
And I'm Mark.
Enjoy.
With a half-eaten heart, the god of reason deserts me. Only earth and sky remain. Mountains shake and wake me. Words of the seeress reveal. Come out my eyes that I might see. Treacherous thoughts unfold in time and show their nature. My brain just was all my brain.